video is sponsored by Supply Handlers. The deadline for every team at the World Cup to lock in their final 26-man squad for the tournament was the 1st of June, but some teams have made a few tweaks to their squad since that date, and we're here to keep you updated. You see, FIFA allows teams to change a player for special reasons up until a day before they play their opening game of the World Cup, and some coaches have taken advantage of that rule to make late tweaks to their teams. Who are some of these teams and which players were changed? You'll find out in this video today. These are 10 last-minute changes that have been made to World Cup squads.
Hey fam, this is your chance to build the jersey collection you've been waiting for. The Goal 90 bundle deal is live. Buy 2 jerseys and get 10% off. Buy 3 and get 15% off. Buy 4 and get a massive 25% off. Club kits, country kits, retro classics, pick your favourites and save big. And yes, every order comes with free worldwide shipping. The deal runs only until the end of May. Goal 90 bundle deal. Buy more, save more. Shop now at Goal 90 Shop.
We'll start with Brazil. Carlo Ancelotti announced his final squad on the 18th of May, and even when Neymar picked up an injury in camp, he insisted that the former Barcelona man was going to go anyway, and he was not going to make any changes to his squad. However, Wesley picking up an injury during the preparatory game against Egypt forced him to change his mind about that. The AS Roma man had to withdraw from the squad, which forced Ancelotti to call up a replacement. He went for Man United's newest signing Ederson Silva, and a lot of people found it quite strange that he called up a midfielder to replace a fullback. What that change meant was that Brazil will now go into the World Cup with no fullback under the age of 30. Very interesting, isn't it? Anyway, getting so close and being forced to drop out was surely very heartbreaking for Wesley, who was set to become the first player from Maranhão to ever represent the Brazil national team at the World Cup. Another Man United player who was called up to the World Cup last minute in addition to Ederson is Tyler Fletcher. He was not named in Scotland's original squad list, but after former Chelsea man Billy Gilmour picked up a knee injury during a pre-tournament friendly against Curaçao, he had to withdraw, opening up space for the 19-year-old Fletcher to be called up to the senior team for the first time. The teenager was one of 4 young players who were invited to train with the senior team ahead of the tournament. Well, he must have really impressed the coach in training, which eventually earned him a ticket to the World Cup. But while this teenager was earning a late call-up, another teenager, Lennart Karp, was forced to withdraw just days to the tournament. He was one of the young players everyone was excited to see at this World Cup. He even assisted a goal in Germany's preparatory game against Finland and seemed destined to go on and have a great tournament. But during that same game, he tore a muscle bundle, which meant that he would not be able to participate at the World Cup. As a result of that, the 18-year-old attacker had to withdraw and was then replaced by the 20-year-old Leipzig midfielder Hassan Ouedraogo. Meanwhile, for Sweden, it was Juventus man Emil Holm who was forced to withdraw from the World Cup squad on the 30th of May. He was replaced with Herman Johansson, who, interestingly, currently plays his football in the US after he completed a move to Dallas FC late last year. Now, one of the really big last-minute changes we saw was the one made by the Netherlands. But before we talk about that, if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, now is a really good time to do that, so you never miss out on our amazing content. Done? Okay, let's now get back to the video. You see, Jurrien Timber had been struggling with an injury for months, which ruled him out for a significant part of the season with Arsenal. But then he returned just in time to make an appearance from off the bench in the UEFA Champions League final against PSG, so it was assumed that he would be fit for the World Cup. He had already been included in Ronald Koeman's final squad list, which was released on the 27th of May. But on the 8th of June, just 3 days before the official commencement of the World Cup, the national team announced that Timber would have to withdraw because he had failed to recover from an injury. What this means is that we will have one less pair of brothers and one less Arsenal player than we anticipated at this year's World Cup. Anyway, Koeman chose to call up Sunderland man Lucharel Geertruida as Timber's replacement, and even the hosts were not left out of these last-minute changes. Jesse Marsch had announced his final squad list for Canada's World Cup on the 29th of May, but just 2 days later, he was forced to make an unexpected change. Marcelo Flores picked up an injury and could no longer participate, so he was replaced by Jadon Nelson. Côte d'Ivoire too made a late change. Imers Faye announced his final 26-man squad pretty early, doing so on the 15th of May. He thought for sure that those were the players he'd be taking to North America, but 2 weeks later, he was forced to make a change. Clément Akpa, the France-born left-back who declared for Côte d'Ivoire last year, picked up an injury and had to withdraw from the squad. The coach then called up Christopher Operi to replace him. Their West African neighbours Ghana also made a late alteration to their final squad. Coach Carlos Queiroz had released a list for the World Cup on the 28th of May, but then 31-year-old Spartak Moscow defender Alexander Djiku picked up an injury and had to be replaced by 30-year-old Paphos centre-back Derek Lucassen on the 1st of June. Let's now move over to South Korea, where we see another forced late change to the squad. Coach Hong Myung-bo had announced his final 26-man World Cup squad on the 16th of May, but he was forced to make a big change to it on the 31st when Cho Yoo-min had to withdraw due to injury. Yoo-min was going to be a very vital member of the squad for South Korea. He can play in the defense and in midfield and was one of the more experienced players in the team, having also previously been to the World Cup 4 years ago. But he's not expected to return to the pitch soon enough to participate in this World Cup, so he had to be dropped. He was replaced by Cho Wee-jae, the 24-year-old defender, yet to play a single game for the South Korea senior team. Finally, defending champions Argentina were also forced into a last-minute change. Lionel Scaloni took his time to release his final squad list, only making the announcement on the 28th of May, 4 days before the deadline. But despite having taken his time, he was still forced to make a big change. Marseille defender Leonardo Balerdi picked up a calf injury during training and was forced to withdraw on the 6th of June, just 5 days before the kickoff of the tournament. Well, just as he had initially done with the 26-man squad list, Scaloni decided to also take his time announcing the replacement for Balerdi. But while everyone was making changes due to injuries, Ralf Rangnick was unperturbed. He announced his final squad list for Austria's World Cup outing on the 18th of May, but on the 2nd of June, he was hit with a huge blow. His star man, Christoph Baumgartner of RB Leipzig, picked up a thigh injury during training which effectively ruled him out of the World Cup. Well, eyes immediately turned to Rangnick to see who he would call up to replace Baumgartner. But the former Man United coach decided that he would not call up anybody else, choosing instead to go into the tournament with 25 players. You know what this reminds us of? France 4 years ago. After Didier Deschamps announced his final squad list, he was hit with a mini injury crisis. Presnel Kimpembe was forced to withdraw because of an injury, so Deschamps replaced him with Axel Disasi. The next day, Christopher Nkunku picked up an injury and had to leave camp, which was the only reason Randall Kolo Muani featured at that World Cup. But then when Karim Benzema also picked up an injury which was set to rule him out of the entire tournament, Deschamps decided he had had enough and was not going to call up a replacement. He decided to take 25 players to the tournament instead. When asked why he didn't call up a replacement for Benzema despite France having a lot of strikers hoping for an opportunity, the coach replied that he felt he had enough quality in his squad already. And well, it turned out he wasn't lying, as Les Bleus went on to reach the final of that particular tournament. So could Rangnick be up to something here with his decision to not call up a replacement for Baumgartner? Anyway, we now want to hear from you guys. Which of these changes do you think will be most significant at the World Cup? Which player do you think will be missed the most? Do you think that these injuries are indicative of a bigger problem? Are players being overused in football? Get in the comments and talk to us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye!